The sun hung high over the dusty town of Silver Creek, casting long, trembling shadows across the uneven streets. The kind of heat that made the wooden boardwalks warp and the horses stamp their hooves in restless agitation. In the corner of the town square, near the creaking hitching post outside the general store, a young boy huddled, trembling, tears streaking his dirt-smeared face. His small hands clutched the post like it was the only anchor left in a world that suddenly seemed too large, too harsh. He had wandered away from his father, lost among the bustle of Silver Creek. Confusion and fear twisted his tiny body into itself, and the occasional sob escaped him in shuddering bursts. No one seemed to notice, no one paused, except for one woman. Marianne Calloway, a widow of 33, had spent years scraping by in her tiny cabin on the outskirts of town. A one-room structure, weathered and sagging, with gaps between the planks wide enough for the wind and the sun to pierce her meager sanctuary. She worked tirelessly, scrubbing laundry for anyone who could pay her a few coins, hauling water from the creek, stretching her thin meals to last the week. Her hands were raw, knuckles cracked, her back perpetually aching from labor that would crush the spirit of any ordinary person. Yet, despite the hardship, Marianne had never let bitterness root. That morning she had delivered a bundle of clean linens to Mrs. Pettigrew at the boarding house, expecting the $2 owed for her labor. $2 that could buy beans, a loaf of bread, or a small piece of salted pork. But, as always, the boarding-house mistress had postponed payment, muttering about hard times and responsibilities she herself could never understand. Marianne tucked her empty basket under her arm and turned toward the edge of the square, wishing the sun would forgive her existence for just a moment. That's when she heard it, a quiet, choking sob that drew her attention. She froze. Her sharp eyes scanned the street until they landed on the boy. He was dressed in fine trousers, a white shirt starched and pristine, boots polished. Yet the disheveled state of his hair, the grime on his face, and the way his tiny shoulders shook betrayed the distress that wealth could not conceal. Her heart clenched, a reflex honed from years of loss and endurance. Without hesitation, she crossed the street, her worn boots stirring the dust beneath them. "Hey there, little fella," she said softly, crouching to meet his wide, frightened eyes. "Are you lost?" The boy flinched, unsure, trembling under the intensity of her gaze. His lips quivered. I can't find my pa. He told me to wait by the wagon, but I got scared, and I don't know where he went." Marianne's throat tightened. Around them the town carried on, indifferent. No hand reached for him, no voice comforted him. She extended her own hand slowly, the gesture simple yet profound. "Don't worry, sugar, we'll find him. First you need a drink." She led him to the trough at the edge of the square, letting him sip the cool water, wiping dust and tears from his threadbare handkerchief. From the shadowed porch of the general store, a man observed. Colton Hayes, the wealthiest rancher in the territory, watched silently. His gray eyes, sharp and calculating, followed every movement. He had been delayed on town business and returned to find his son absent. Panic had struck him briefly, but seeing Marianne crouched beside Tommy, offering kindness without question or expectation, shifted something in him that had lain dormant for years. She didn't know him. She didn't know the reach of his fortune or the influence he wielded across the Arizona territory. She only knew the child needed care, and she gave it freely. Once Tommy's breathing had evened out, Marianne guided him back toward the general store, speaking softly, asking questions, keeping him calm. Colton emerged from the shadows, boots tapping the wooden planks of the boardwalk. Tommy's relief was immediate. He broke from Marianne's side and ran into his father's arms. Colton's features softened for the briefest instant before they regained their usual commanding sternness. Marianne stood frozen, hands clasped in front of her apron, suddenly aware of the man now studying her like a puzzle to be solved. Colton Hayes. Power, wealth, territory, a name that carried respect, fear, and opportunity. "I found him by the post," Marianne said quickly, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. "I just wanted to make sure he was safe." Colton nodded slowly, a shadow of approval in his gaze. "I appreciate that, ma'am." Marianne hesitated. "I'll be on my way." "Wait, what's your name?" Colton asked, his voice gentle but authoritative. "Marianne Calloway," she replied. "Thank you," he said simply, before turning and striding back to his wagon, leaving her standing in the dust, heart pounding.
That evening, back at the vast expense of Hayes Ranch, Colton sat with his foreman, Ruth McAllister, a sharp, loyal woman in her 50s, and relayed what he had witnessed. "Find out everything you can about Marianne Calloway," he instructed. "I want to know who she is, what she's done, and what makes her different." Over the next days, Ruth worked tirelessly, asking the boarding house, the general store, and even the town preacher about the widow who had rescued Tommy. The answer was the same: hard-working, proud, honest, yet barely surviving, living on the fringes of Silver Creek with nothing but a cabin and a fierce dignity. Colton's decision was made. The next morning he rode out, Ruth by his side, toward Marianne's humble cabin on the edge of the scrubland. Marianne was at the creek, hands submerged in icy water, scrubbing clothes as the morning sun burned her shoulders. She froze when she saw the imposing figure of Colton Hayes dismounting his black stallion, Ruth on her chestnut mare behind him. "Mrs. Calloway," Colton said, tipping his hat, "I have a proposal for you." Marianne blinked, wary. "A job?" "Yes," he said, "managing the household operations here at the ranch. Supplies, correspondence, staff oversight, responsibility, room and board included." Marianne's mind reeled. $60 a month, 3 meals a day, a roof that didn't sag. The chance to escape the grinding poverty she had endured for years. Pride warred with practicality. I don't take charity," she said. "This isn't charity," Colton replied firmly. "It's an opportunity, a position you are uniquely suited for." He handed her a small leather pouch. "Advance on your first month. Consider it payment for your actions yesterday." Marianne's hands trembled as she felt the weight of the coins inside. For the first time in years, hope stirred in her chest. She agreed to take 2 days to think, then decided to accept. When she arrived at Hayes Ranch, the vast expanse of fields, cattle, and buildings overwhelmed her. Ruth guided her to her quarters, a room of comfort she had only dreamed of. The first days were brutal, learning the routines, adjusting to the expectations of staff, correcting mistakes. Marianne threw herself into the work, determined to earn her place. Some of the ranch hands whispered. Some watched her with thinly veiled disdain. Garrett Finch, the ranch manager, made no effort to hide his contempt. 3 months passed. Marianne proved herself indispensable. Accounts balanced, staff organized, meals coordinated, correspondence managed. Yet Garrett's resentment festered, waiting for an opportunity to strike. That opportunity came in the form of a forged complaint sent to the Arizona Cattlemen's Association, implicating the ranch in a scandal and bearing Marianne's forged signature. Panic threatened to undo all she had earned. Alone, Marianne reviewed the paperwork by candlelight, determination hardening into resolve. With Ruth's help, they searched the ranch's records and discovered Garrett's treachery. Evidence of stolen funds, collusion with outside interests, and forgery lay before them. They brought it to Colton, who confronted Garrett with the sheriff waiting, sealing the man's fate. Justice prevailed. Marianne's place at the ranch was secure. Colton apologized for doubting her, acknowledging her role not only in preserving the ranch, but in bringing a human heart to its operations. Months later, Marianne had expanded her duties, creating the Hayes Women's Cooperative, a program offering women from Silver Creek and beyond employment, education, and opportunity. Her vision, once limited by poverty, now flourished. Tommy played nearby, learning from the world Marianne had helped build. Colton watched her from the porch, admiration and warmth in his gaze. "Do you plan to stay?" he asked quietly. Marianne smiled. "I'm home." And for the first time in years, she truly was. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more Wild West tales, and leave a comment sharing what you'd do in Marianne's place. And if you want to see more cinematic stories like this, hit subscribe. Your support keeps these tales alive.